The Ohio EPA is confident that the municipal water is safe to drink. Are you confident enough, sir, that you yourself would drink it?
Absolutely. If I was there right now, I would drink it.
Welcome back to Notify America. 1 year ago, a Norfolk Southern train derailed in the small town of East Palestine, Ohio. A train carrying toxic chemicals, and instead of cleaning everything up, the company, along with state and federal agencies, decided it made more sense to blow it up. A controlled explosion was safer, they said, per the recommendation of the EPA. Realize these train cars were carrying 116,000 gallons of vinyl chloride, an extreme carcinogenic. Something you don't want to be 100 miles from, let alone living on top of. Now, following the explosion, local residents began reporting discoloration of their water, reporting finding dead animals in their backyards, dead fish, deer, and pets. Videos like these began being posted online. This is Senator J.D. Vance visiting East Palestine shortly after the incident. Watch this.
Hey guys, so I'm here at Leslie Run, and there's dead worms and dead fish all throughout this water. So, something I just discovered is that if you scrape the creek bed, it's like chemical is coming out of the ground. Can you come here and let me just show this to people. I don't know if you're going to see this on camera, but watch this. Just see that chemical pop out of the creek. This is disgusting. And the fact that we have not cleaned up the train crash, the fact that these chemicals are still seeping in the ground is an insult to the people who live in East Palestine. Do not forget these people. We've got to keep applying pressure. That's how we're going to fix this problem. Thank you.
1 year later, and the water looks the same. The soil still smells the same, like chemicals. If you decide to dig in your backyard, plant some flowers, grow a garden, well, leave it to presidential politics to decide it's a good time, a good idea for a photo op right now, as President Biden plans to visit the town next week, something that he should have done a year ago. Realize the residents of East Palestine were basically left to fend for themselves. Almost no help was given to these people. The level of toxic pollutants in that town is something that nobody should be forced to live with. And the worst part is the institution who should be exposing all of this, corporate media, was trying their damnedest to bury the story. Even as residents were developing all types of severe reactions, trying to report these reactions and symptoms, the only outlet who continued to cover it was News Nation. Did a deep investigation recently and found even after the EPA gave the all clear to return to your homes, to return to school and work, some people are still developing, quote, rashes, chronic nosebleeds, respiratory infections, and other side effects, unquote, according to the report. Watch some of it here.
A Norfolk Southern train derails in East Palestine, Ohio, carrying toxic chemicals, among them vinyl chloride, a known carcinogen.
I heard a noise, and then all of a sudden there was a hell of a fire.
Some 1,500 residents told to evacuate.
It was much higher than 100-foot tall trees on the back of my property.
Fearing an explosion, officials decide to vent and burn 5 tank cars, releasing 116,000 gallons of toxic vinyl chloride into the air. It looks like a volcanic eruption. Minutes later, the toxic plume of smoke smothering the region.
You ready? I'm ready. Let's get out of here.
We basically nuked a town with chemicals so we could get a railroad open.
But 3 days later, the EPA said it had not detected contaminants at, quote, levels of concern, and gave the all clear for residents to return.
With the full support and backing of Governor DeWine, I am happy to announce that the evacuation order is now lifted.
Immediately, residents complained of rashes and sickness.
I undressed to get into the shower, and I had a rash all over the side of my face, on both sides, and all over my chest.
There are absolutely still kids with nosebleeds, adults with nosebleeds, chemical burns.
Now, they interviewed the chief medical officer in the CDC's Environmental Health Division, a guy named Dr. Arthur Chang, who confirmed that a chemical exposure did blanket the entire town, and the persisting symptoms of residents are proof of that, saying, quote, "We may not know how to get rid of the vinyl chloride from the body, but we know how to treat those cancers," unquote. absolutely insane that residents had to move back there. Realize this isn't like a affluent neighborhood. These are working class families. Many of them don't have the means to just pick up and buy a new house somewhere else. And the federal government did essentially nothing. Even the state government seemed far too worried about the negative publicity than they did about helping the families. Ohio Governor, for example, Mike DeWine, a Republican, did ask the Biden administration to issue a disaster declaration after it happened, which Biden denied doing. But that was it. No outcry afterward, nothing. The whole thing just got buried and forgotten. Here's Mike DeWine in the week after the derailment trying to convince families their water was safe. Go back home to your homes. Stop worrying. Go back. Stop complaining already. Watch this.
I want to thank you for joining us this evening. But first, I want to dive in on a statement that your office released earlier today. You said that there is no detection of contaminants in raw water from the 5 wells that feed into East Palestine's municipal water system. The Ohio EPA is confident that the municipal water is safe to drink. Are you confident enough, sir, that you yourself would drink it?
Absolutely. If I was there right now, I would drink it. Look, the experts told us, they said, look, it's it would be a long shot if there's any problem with this water, because these are deep wells that feed people, that feed the municipal water supply there. But we said, look, we got to test them anyway. And so we did test them. We tested all 5 of the wells, and they all came back as good.
And realize the population of East Palestine, Ohio is 4,700 people. That's it. 4,700 people. If you break that down by family group or family unit, it's probably half of that, if not less. But even if we say 4,700 people, the federal government paid each person, let's say $250,000 apiece to relocate, leave their homes and belongings there and just go somewhere else, and gave them each $250,000, that would have cost around $1.5 billion. That's it. So sounds like a lot, but in comparison, we've already sent Ukraine $120+ billion, 120 times that. We have no problem sending our tax dollars to help other countries, but real working class Americans, families, kids who are living with this in our country, inside our borders, we just left to fend for themselves. It's disgraceful. Here's a clip from News Nation's in-depth report. Watch this.
You see all the chemicals pop to the surface.
Oh, look at all the dead fish.
And this is just upstream from where I did this in February. It's now September. Let's see what happens here. Yikes. It just keeps coming. After our report in September, the EPA ordered Norfolk Southern to do more testing and more cleanup. The EPA tells News Nation they are still waiting on those results. And the Ohio EPA this week told NPR, "We don't have any science that suggests there is contamination that would pose a human health risk. We don't have any sign of contamination in the air, in the water, in the soil." Problem is, data from an independent environmental group suggests exactly the opposite.
Most of the contamination that we found with these 15 different analytes, we would recommend no exposure levels.
Zero.
These are non-natural carcinogenic chemicals.
Heather Holton Von Tassel, head of Three River Waterkeeper, tested right here in Sulphur Run in November, and their results are off the charts for 15 different harmful chemicals. Chemicals, carcinogens, that in each category the EPA is documenting at much, much lower levels.
We're testing for the same things as EPA, and we're finding really high levels.
Is it safe to say the EPA might not be looking hard enough?
It's safe to say that the EPA has not done enough testing yet to deem this community safe based on the exposure that we found in the sediment.
Think about that. The government tells you it's safe to go back there, and this is the creek outside your house. The EPA, by the way, now says that 40,000 animals have died in the area due to the toxic exposure from the water, from the soil. Nobody has been held accountable. Nobody's been forced to answer questions. No accountability whatsoever. Transportation Secretary Mayor Pete, completely vacant, nowhere to be seen. He's responsible for dishing out the more than $1 trillion IRA money that Congress passed last year for the infrastructure bill. Has any of it gone to the residents of East Palestine or to clean up the town? Nothing. He spent some of it on rebuilding what he calls racist roads, though. This is not something that naturally gets better, by the way. The chemicals are in the soil, in the ground. That beautiful northeastern Ohio town is likely permanently destroyed, and our president's heading there for a photo op because the Ohio EPA just came out and reported no signs of contamination. Which is clearly not true. You just saw News Nation walk up to a creek and show us the chemicals. You can see it with your own eyes. I don't know, folks. I'd be pretty upset if I lived there. Let me know what you think about this in the comments. All right, that wraps up this episode. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.